Eric, I imagine a 2-0 win at home is probably more like you want to see it.
Yeah, I felt like we were. It was a shame that the conditions made the second half what it was, because I felt like in the first half it was one of our most complete performances so far. I felt like we were really, really good, really dominant, everything that you'd expect us to be at home, and to an extent picked up where we left off last week, but with that that conviction, the decisiveness that we really need as a team to make sure that we can turn what have been really strong advantages for us over the course of the last 3 games into 3 points, and we've done that tonight relatively comfortably, conditions aside. So I'm really pleased, but also there's more to come, and I feel like we'd have shown that in the second half had the game obviously not become what it became.
The second half, obviously Real Salt Lake had a number of chances. Do you chalk that up to the weather, or was it a little bit of, oh no, here we go again in terms of the second half defense?
No, I think the nature of those conditions, when I refer to the conditions, I mean us being 2-0 up, the way in which the weather affected the game in the second half. I think it bred some strange moments for sure. We've got to keep pushing ourselves to make sure we show real concentration and real conviction in those moments, but obviously you're playing against a team that is 2-0 down. They're taking far more risks than they took in the first half. They've obviously made a number of changes, and the way in which they played became more loose, more chaotic. So I think it's for us to accept that to an extent, but also make sure that we really push ourselves to close out those final stages in real detail. I think it was an odd situation for changes from the bench from our perspective, and putting cold subs into a situation that would perhaps have been tough for them. So I didn't feel like it was one for us to be really proactive in trying to alter something in order to stem that flow a little bit. But I think in general the second half was still very balanced. We still had some very good chances, and I felt like overall we were more than good value for that 3 points.
On the other hand, in the first half, you had 0 shots on target. It was just defensively solid. How do you feel about the team's overall performance through that first 45 minutes?
No, I felt like in the first half we were very, very good. I think it was absolute dominance, and a number of really good chances, and of course us being very solid, very difficult to play through, as we have been typically over the course of the first 6 games. So I think it was a reference point of a first half for us, and as I say, I was disappointed that we didn't have the chance for that to continue into the second half, and the second half deteriorated into a game that wasn't much of a spectacle, but one that I'm very thankful that the fans stayed for, because I think every one of the players in there would tip their hats to them, because that certainly was a bit of a grind for them as much as it was for the players.
We saw Joaquin flash a couple times tonight. How would you look at kind of his play tonight and kind of generally over the last couple of games?
Yeah, I think he was really, really good tonight, and he's come off on 60 minutes solely on the basis of the fact that he was on a bookie, and I felt the referee tonight was very quick to give fouls. He was very quick to give yellow cards, and I didn't want to put Joaquin or the team in a situation where we regretted that one. And again, that was one that I was almost regretfully executing at that point, because he was playing so well, and he's had for sure a growing impact on the team in front of goal over the course of this season, but in particular in the last 3 games. I think what you saw from him tonight was a really strong performance with and without the ball. And without the ball, I've got to say, in his time here, he's really improved in that sense. He's really reliable. He's very competitive, very aggressive, and you saw today he didn't want to come off on 65 minutes, and that is a sign of a player that smells blood, feels like he's in a really good vein of form, and had really good rhythm. And it was a shame we had to disrupt that, but I think justified all in all.
We saw Bongi and Jefferson Diaz with a lot of room down the right-hand side. What were you able to exploit to get them open on that side?
Yeah, we again, I've made reference to this previously. We want to make sure that Bongi has license to attack as if he's a winger, and I think when we're at our best, we still continue to attack with a really high rhythm. We play really quick. We play onto the last line. We use the pace of the forwards. But I think tonight, when we're at our best, we have enough passes to make sure that we can get Bongi where he needs to be. And I always felt like home games would give us a platform to do that. I felt like the first 4 games were obviously skewed by the nature of us being away 3 out of 4, and I think since we've been here, you've seen a really good version of us, particularly on that side. And I want that dynamism, I want that flexibility and the rhythm that Jefferson gives us there, but also Carlos gives us there. So I think the combination of, particularly in the first half, Jeff, Bongi, and Rob, and in previous weeks, Carlos, when he's been at his best, I think that's something that we've really got to continue to lean into.
Kelvin Yeboah has gotten you a brace Tanny now adds himself to a brace coming off the international break. What are your thoughts on how Tanny performed tonight?
Yeah, he did great, and we've got almost a healthy internal competition between those two guys in the sense that they both like to be centre stage. They've both had their moments over the course of each of the games that we've played so far. Last week aside, with Tanny being away, so I feel like we've got two of the informed forwards in the league, and I've never really doubted the fact that it would click and that we'd get good performances from both of them over the course of the season. And I'm pleased that, to an extent, I am pleased that they're going to and fro at the moment. And you're seeing Kelvin in form 1 week in terms of production in front of goal, and then Tanny the other. And I'm sure over the course of the season, it will be should things continue as they are, they'll have some really good numbers by the time the season finishes.
How'd you look at the centre back trio tonight?
Yeah, I think they did great. Nicholas, obviously, he adds a real weight of physicality, and he uses the ball really well. He's what we were looking for in that sense, someone that can use the ball from deep. He's got a really good range of passing. He's very he's direct. He wants to play forward. He wants to use the pace that we've got on the last line, and I think we exploited that well tonight. And I think Morris, without having the standout defensive moments, the scrambles to clear, the defending the box moments that he's had over the course of the first 5 or 6 games, he had a really steady night, and to an extent, they're the nights that we want him to have. We want him to almost go under the radar and not have to defend some moments in the way that he has up until this point. So I think that performance for him was great, and then obviously Jefferson, he had some really good moments with the ball tonight. In particular, gave us a lot of threat on that side, and I'm sure that would show up in the stats. I'd be surprised if he wasn't one of the more productive, high-value players that we had on the ball tonight, and obviously that showed in his assist for the first goal.
You've had 5 center backs who've had good performances so far this year. How are you going to pick just 3 going forward?
Yeah, it's tricky, and it's a situation that we wanted to be in. I think we're probably better off there than we might have anticipated coming into pre-season with how Morris has performed. As I've said previously, in these situations, I've always liked Morris's qualities. I think it's really hard to come by a left-footed centre-back with that level of athleticism and coachability and how he is as a character. And I think when you add that then to the players that we've developed in those roles up until this point, and the way in which Carlos has become, for us and for Panama, a really good bet at that position, it's a healthy problem for me to have, and one that I'm thankful that I've got. But I also feel like with a couple of the injuries we picked up over the course of the last couple of weeks, and then Carlos becomes a good option in the middle, and we can look at the team in a way in which I've always wanted to be able to view it, that we've got versatile pieces that can help us in a number of ways. And I think you saw Carlos when he came in, albeit for a very brief period in midfield. He looked dynamic, he looked aggressive, he looked powerful, and for sure he can add that.
In terms of the conditions, did the wet weather and the extreme rain alter your game plan at all throughout the night?
No, but obviously it affected the second half. Very obviously, the game became one that probably wasn't easy to watch. Difficult to find any continuity on the ball, and I think every player probably felt like they were a ball holding up from away from committing a real error. So I think that affected the way in which the players played the game. But I think we did a really professional job. I said to the players at half time that I felt like it was going to be one where body language was a really important factor. I think you saw it on both teams that there were points where it was fairly obvious the players were finding it tough to be out there, and I think there was a good chunk of them that would have chucked it in if they had the choice. But I think for us, coming out in the first 15 minutes and showing that really positive body language and communicating and making the best of what was a really difficult situation, I think we did a really good job in that sense. And I would also say the crowd helped there, albeit it certainly dwindled by the time the final whistle finished. I think there were a really high number of people that stayed and made those final stages easier for us, so we're really thankful for that for sure.
Have you gotten an explanation on that area of the pitch, the south end, why it's so waterlogged?
No, that will be for I'm sure a conversation that people will have as the week goes on.
Is there any update on Owen?
I don't think it's a particularly serious one. I wouldn't say from the early conversations, but I think it would probably be one that we reserve judgment on until Monday or Tuesday. Good. Thanks, guys.